So hello and welcome to my channel again. Before I go on, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to my channel. Please like my channel and please share my content. I'd like to get my voice out there. Okay, I'm a recovering socialist, recovering liberal, and someone whose eyes have been opened. The rose-colored glasses have been removed. The propaganda that I've been grown up with and thought to believe. I've seen it for what it is. I'd like to share that coming from my perspective. So I'd like you all to share, share, and subscribe to my video. So in my last video, I told you guys I'm going to speak about being attending a university and basically being shamed and having, you know, basically basically what the professor said, some things we should not talk about. Okay, mind you, this is in an academic setting. Before I go further, I want to tell you what school it was. The school is called the Liberal Arts and Professional Study. Okay, and there are different schools within that. So that's a department of the university. Liberal Arts, again, hear that, Liberal Arts and Professional Study. Okay, I need to accentuate, I need to highlight the fact that it says it was liberal. Okay, and the reason for that is this is very important, right? This is very important. And in liberalism and in liberal arts, in liberal colleges and liberal arts, and anything to do with liberalism, it talks about the freedom of expression, the freedom of inquiry, the academic freedom, all of these freedom. Okay, it speaks about all of these freedoms. And remember, this is a university setting where freedom is paramount. Asking questions is paramount. Being free from retaliation and retribution is paramount. Okay, it is paramount in this setting. Okay, and before it became a vogue, before it was fad to shame people, this is why I experience it. I'm going to tell you the exact question I ask and you'll see the question is actually, it's not a question that should elicit shame, an attempt to silence me, an attempt to stymie freedom of academia and academic inquiry. Okay? In fact, no topics should ever be off limit in a academic setting, post-secondary setting, especially one that claim it is a school of liberal arts. Okay? None should be off limits. Nothing should be off limits. Everything should be discussed openly and fairly. And whether or not you fail to convince me to your point of view, or I fail to convince you to my point of view, we should all be respected for our views. Okay? So I really want to bring this up in this topic because I want to show you how even the university system, the college system, that should be the vanguard of the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, the freedom of academic inquiry, and a safe place to ask questions without being shamed, have now been co-opted by a cabal. I'm taking this word from Tulsi, from Tulsi, right? Tulsi Gabbard. I'm taking that word. A cabal of Marxist, socialists, and neo-socialists and neo-anti-fascists. Okay? I have to call them neo-anti-fascists because they're very extreme. So this is what I want to speak to you guys about. And the professor that basically shamed me, I need to highlight this. That professor is a lesbian. Okay, that professor is a lesbian, and you may say sexuality has nothing to do with this. And I am not anti-gay. Okay, I am not anti-gay. Get that straight. I am not anti-gay. Okay, maybe many of you listening to this will be. I personally am not. You know, I believe what happened between two consenting adults of mental capacity who's not mentally stymied, that's their business. This is what I truly believe. Okay, so again, I'm demonstrating a bit more liberalism than these so-called liberals, aren't I? Right? And the reason I'm highlighting the sexuality, as I said, and I'll go back to that. I believe it is important, and I'll go later on. I will tell you why it's important. So the question I asked, right? There was a discussion, and I asked this question. We were talking about mental illness, and I remember reading an article where, and you all can go look at it. It happened in the U.S. I think was it Princeton or Harvard that was involved in that, and they sent some people who did not have mental illness to pretend that they had mental illness, and they went into the mental institution. They behaved normally, and the doctors or whomever the mental health professional said that their mental illness was in remission, or I forget the term they used. But basically, they said it's there, but it's not active. Okay, I don't remember the exact term. And so I highlighted that I read this article. I asked the question, if any, does anybody who have read this article, do they know what happened? What's the follow-up to that study, that experiment? That is what I asked. Okay, mind you, I can understand if they misunderstood what I asked or did not clearly heard what I asked. Okay, I can understand that. But that professor's response to my question was, well, there are some questions that we should no longer ask, We should no longer ask some questions. I don't know, maybe. And to anyone suffering from mental illness who's afflicted with that, I apologize. I mean no disrespect. Okay, I mean no disrespect. Maybe they wanted to say those impacted with mental illness are stigmatized, and the question I'm asking is going to stigmatize them further by saying that I don't know what they're trying to say. Okay, that's the only thing I can think of, that maybe I'm trying to say mental illnesses cannot be cured. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. But I didn't see anything wrong with the question I asked, especially in an academic setting, asking about the follow-up, if anyone knows the follow-up about what happened with that experiment. Okay? But I was shamed, and I was told I should not ask those questions, and some questions should not be asked again. And once again, I want to highlight to you, the professor was a female. She was lesbian. Okay, she said she's lesbian. She openly said that. Now, what I've come to realize, so I'm the first, and I was one of the first people in this world to be shamed and silenced, to be silenced, right? To be shamed and to be silenced. That should not have happened. They should have asked for clarification. They should have engaged in a discussion. They should have said, you know what, X, Y, Z, but never at any moment in time. They should have never tried to silence me and tell me those are questions we should not ask. In a liberal college, especially in a liberal department, all questions should be open. There should be nothing off the table. Nothing should be off limit. Okay? What I'm trying to say is that even liberal college are now being held hostage by themselves and their ultra political correctness. Okay? Political correctness is now stifling the ability of liberal colleges and universities in general to engage in meaningful discussions. Okay? And this is why a lot of the things were buried under the surface, and now it's exploding. But that attitude of the leftists, the socialists, the liberals, the Marxists, That attitude have also bred fertile ground for Islamists to openly, for Islamists and anti-Semites, anti-whites, anti-Christians, anti-Hindus to openly propagate their propaganda without repercussion, because it became okay to challenge those who were centrist and more right-leaning and to shame them. But these same people who shamed those with valid the questions were afraid to shame or hold Islamists, not shame, but hold Islamists to account, because they did not want to be seen as anti-Islamic or Islamophobic. Okay? And being Islamophobic is actually not wrong. Islamic hate is wrong, but Islamophobia is not wrong. Okay? In fact, I don't think having a phobia of Islamists is actually irrational. That is completely irrational. I mean, ask the people in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, what's happening right now, right? They have a right to be Islamophobic, right? So, what I'm saying is that the professors, the colleges, the universities are now held hostage by their own belief that they're no longer able to call out those who actually mean threat, not only to you and me, but to themselves. To themselves. Do you think that lesbian would call out Islamophobia? Not Islamophobia. Do you think she would call out Islamists? No, she would not. But if you speak against Islamic fascism, she would call you Islamophobic. Meanwhile, Islamists would persecute her. They would stone her to death. This is what they would do. Okay? And any YouTube censors out there, please differentiate what I'm saying. Islamists, I'm not saying Islam, I'm saying Islamists. Okay? So, if I were to speak about Nazis, you guys will not censor this, so don't censor this. I'm talking about Islamists. Okay? So, you have a dichotomy here where you oppress those who have reasonable questions, reasonable expectation, reasonable belief. You suppress them while you give free rein to those who wish to cause harm and terror to others, including themselves. Mind you, let me remind you, again, I experienced this at the college. The department in the college is the Department of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies. Okay? Liberal college, liberal university. This is where I experienced this. Shaman. This is where I experienced this. Could you believe that? But they will not call out these people because they don't want to be called Islamophobic. And this is why I started moving away from that, because I did not want to be trapped by irrationality, by irrational liberalism. That is not rational liberalism. That is extreme neo-leftism, extreme socialism, extreme Marxism, extreme communism. You have to remember, in communism, it's not about the people. It's about the party, the survival of the party. And it is about the dictatorship of a minority over the majority. Many of the people who are Marxist socialists, like the extreme, the neo-Marxist, the neo-socialist, the neo-communists, the neo-Maoists. This is what their core beliefs are. They don't realize this. It is to suppress the freedom of speech, to suppress the freedom of expression, and to worship them. Okay? To worship them. If you look at North Korea, okay? North Korea is extreme left. And their leader is glorified as a deity. Okay? He's glorified as a deity. And this is what the left is. And the liberals they're no longer liberals. They call themselves liberals, but they are now more left of left. There's extreme left, and I'll call left of left. And right of left might be liberals. Okay? Right of left might be liberals. They're not centrist anymore. They're not centrist. They're not close to centrist. They have moved so far to the left, but they don't know that because it happened gradually. So we have to hold them to account that they are actively suppressing the freedom of free expression, the freedom of free speech, the freedom of academic inquiry, the freedom of academic expression. Okay? So the academia setting in most universities and colleges have been hijacked. Okay? When you go there as somebody who's centrist or more of a right of center, you a reasonable person, you're seen as extreme because they are so far to the left. It makes a reasonable person seem extreme. Yeah. So once again, to reiterate, the colleges, the universities, the liberal colleges, the liberal programs, they are now held hostage by their own shaming of others. And they do not admit this. There is no longer freedom of discussion, freedom of expression, academic freedom in liberal arts programs, liberal schools, liberal colleges, liberal universities. There is none. It's just a lie. Okay? It's not even a quoting. It's just an outright lie. They tell you it's there. When you look, there's not even a film to quote it. Nothing. Nothing. And this is being propagated on and on and on. And now it has become so toxic. It has become so toxic that the truth is now hostage. We have moved to a post-truth world. We have moved to a post-truth world. And this was pushed, this was piloted, this was created by the cabal of the extreme leftists, Marxists, Maoists, and socialists. Though they want to blame the centrists and the right of center and the right. It is not true. It is actually the left, because I have experiences before it actually became vogue, before it became fashion to shame people. And many of you will know that you now do not freely express yourself because of fear of repercussion. Okay? I mean, how many of you get emails saying they, she, her, whatever? How many of you could put, your preferred pronouns as Mr. and man? How many of you can do that without repercussion? The person who puts their pronouns into your face will become offended if you use your preferred pronoun as a man, a sir, a male. They may become offended by that, but yet they shove theirs into your face and not see the hypocrisy of it. I once came across a YouTube video, and let me reiterate, I am not gay, anti-gay. I'm not gay, but I'm not anti-gay, okay? I'm not. Like I said, what goes on between two consenting adults of mental capacity, none of my business. But you can go look it up online. You can research it. And they were asking gays about if they would like to have experienced sex with straight person. And they were reacting, oh, no, disgusting. This is horrible. So, yeah. If a straight person were to do that, they would lose their jobs. Why is it not the same for those gays? Why? Why is it not the same for them? And they behaving in the same exact way that maybe gay-hating straight people would behave? And they behaving in the same exact way that they would deplore had it been a straight person saying that all gays. Anyway, the reason why I mentioned the sexuality of my professor, is that, you see, when they were struggling, when they wanted freedom of expression, when they wanted to express themselves, to tell you why they should be accepted, why what they're doing is not wrong, all of these things. Freedom of expression, freedom of language, freedom of academia, freedom of academics discussion, all of these things were paramount. But now that they have gotten their way, they're no longer willing to express, they're no longer willing to champion freedom of expression for those who are who are on the opposite side of the table, on the opposite side of the discussion. You see, this is why I mentioned that. They have won their rights because of the freedom of expression. But now they want to take that away from others who have legitimate concerns. Okay, they have legitimate concerns, but they want to take that away because now it is no longer a liberal society, though it may be called so in name. It is now a neo-socialist, neo-Marxist, neo-Maoist, neo-communist society that we live in, whether it's USA, England, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Germany, France, any of those countries. They are just a mirage of liberal society. They're not truly liberal anymore. They're not truly liberal anymore. Anyway, my next video, I'm gonna put this up today because I said I'll speak to you guys about that. My next video is going to be about Islamists versus white racists / white supremacists, which you should be more fearful of. Who is worse? Who is more of a danger to you? Okay? So I hope you watch that video I put out after this one. That will be in about 2 weeks' time. I want to get at least 50 views on this video. So please like, subscribe, and share. And then I will put that other video out, okay? After I hit 50 views, because if I reach well, I would like to reach at least 10%. Help me grow my channel, please. Take care. Bye.